All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another live edition of From the Chair with Big Money Exchange, where inclusion matters. Today we have Christopher. He's a referee. And our host, Mr. Nathan Blah, who thinks he knows it all, Nos. Take it away, Nos.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for being on today, Chris. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
So, the first question is, what got you involved in wrestling, and did you always want to be a referee?
What got me involved in wrestling? Like most people, that stems back to watching it as a kid. My dad took me to my first live event when I was really little. It was an indie show done in a basketball gym and or a high school gym, and I saw who is it? Steve Gatorwolf up against some wrestler, and he was. I watched him get stabbed in the arm with a pen while the ref wasn't looking, and I can remember running up to the ring itself and slapping on the mat and trying to get the ref's attention because I saw him doing it, and I was hooked after that. I started watching wrestling ever since then, and I was a WWE guy, and I watched a lot of their programming, and went through the Monday Night Wars. Grew up watching Shawn Michaels. He was a big inspiration to me. Yeah, I had always been a WWE guy. Now, did I always want to be a referee? Well, when you get into wrestling, it's like you always see yourself as the wrestler. The way the referee end of it came about, when I finally got my chance to get into the business, come to find out I'm 100 miles away from the nearest school. So I was limited on the amount of training that I could go do, and I was a single father at the time. So responsibility being what they are, I had to do what I could, and what I could do was get trained in a ring that I helped set up before showtime, and we would set up a couple hours before it was time to go. And the current students, which included guys like Mike Knox and Derek Nykirk, and of course Navajo Warrior, they would take a moment out of the day to show us a few things. But refereeing is what I could do with that limited amount of training, and so that's just something that I stuck with.
Very cool.
It's been about 20 years now.
Wow.
In your opinion, what's the biggest difference between being a referee and a performer?
I would have to say the training. The wrestlers have to be in tip-top condition, and be able to do a lot more um, in the ring, whereas being a referee, you have to be agile, but I don't have to be like 3% body fat, which thank God, because I don't see that happening tomorrow.
Okay, so what was the craziest thing you've ever seen as a referee?
you lose him?
The craziest thing
Oh, there we
I've seen as a referee, um, um, the craziest thing that I've probably seen would probably go back to a luchador show that we did in the early 2000s in the back of a Mexican furniture store, and it wasn't. I think there was a language barrier or something, but uh, we had told the luchadors because we were bringing in the ring, and we told the luchadors, this is a family show. There's not to be any blood, and they apparently understood that as a lot of blood was okay. And they did their match, and they bled a lot. And that particular venue was all white tile.
Oh no.
So it looked like an absolute bloodbath. They bled everywhere. The canvas was actually destroyed. We told we didn't even take it with us. We're like, this is yours now. We don't want it. But what was crazy about that wasn't the match itself, it was the fans. It was the weirdest thing I had ever seen. It was the first time where I saw and they were still doing the match in the middle of the ring, and they had pools of blood on white tile just all the way around the ring. And families were taking pictures of their kids standing next to the ring, standing in the pools of blood. Like
Whoa.
that that's something that you have nightmares about. But what was really hard about that day was after we had pulled the ring out at the end of the day, and to see what was left, it was like seeing the Passion of the Christ scene after they drug him away. It was horrible.
Wow.
But yeah, that was probably the craziest night that I've had so far.
Very cool. So who are your wrestling heroes growing up?
Well, again, thinking about it, I'm going back to Shawn Michaels. It seems like I've followed his career the most. I can remember being there when the Rockers broke up. So him super kicking him through the glass on the barbershop scene. To uh, his assault in forget where it was now, but when he was jumped and said that he couldn't do it anymore and he had to walk away. He lost his smile. I can remember where I was in that moment. Such a powerful storyline, and that really got to me. Coming back for WrestleMania 12, the Iron Man match between him and Bret Hart was epic. Something that I'll always remember. I always felt that regardless of whether or not the two of them really didn't like each other, I felt like their storytelling was top notch. So I feel like Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart were the guys to watch back in the day.
Yeah, that was in Syracuse that he got jumped. So, what was the best and worst gimmick match you've ever been involved in?
Well, back when I first started, I started with Impact Zone Wrestling in Arizona here. Back when Nav was still running the promotion, he actually gave me and my group, which there was 4 of us when we started. He gave my group the opportunity to help out and do what we do, and that included dropping ideas for storylines. And he had a student there who had a gimmick where he was kind of presenting himself as crazy and talking on a telephone that had it was an old school telephone that had the spiral cord on it, but it wasn't connected to anything. So, there he was on the phone having a conversation, but you obviously knew that it was that there was no one on the other line. Well, it got to the point where he was having arguments with the phone as if it was an actual person, and he ended up taking an argument out on the phone to the point where he beat the phone up in the ring and dropped an elbow on it. So we're like, you know what? The phone needs some revenge. So the next show, we had phone come out, and my friend Nick came out to Eye of the Tiger holding the phone, and he would use the cord to high five the fans as he went around. So the phone was a face, and the other guy came out, and they consisted to have a match with just him and the phone. And the ref ended up getting distracted by another wrestler, and the other guy got knocked out. So the ref turns around, and the phone is lying on his chest. Well, that's a pinfall.
Oh, that's the best. One of the best answers I've heard. The only man in history to be beat by a phone.
Yeah. So yeah, good times.
Okay, my only question to that was the phone billed from AT&T?
I couldn't say.
I mean, that would have made it even better, but that's still hilarious. Did you ever have to be assertive when it was time for them to go home? So, like, if it was time for the match to end, did you ever have to be like, "Come on, guys, it's time to go"? If they didn't want to do it.
I've had matches that have continued after they ended because they wanted to get their stuff in. Everyone has a bad night. Well, on a night where I was having a bad night, I was reffing a match for Mike Knox, and I counted to 3 when I shouldn't have, and I ended the match, and Knox continued to beat the snot out of the kid for probably another 5 minutes. He got in everything he wanted to do, and that was on me. But yeah, there wasn't telling Knox no at that particular time.
Now, when you say Mike Knox, because I know that's kind of a popular name sometimes in wrestling, are you talking like the WWE Mike Knox, or is it a different one?
It is the same one. It is the same one. Knox actually got his start here in Arizona However, he goes back to his time in OVW. I'm not sure that he talks about his lower indie scene days that much, but yeah, he got his start out of Arizona with IZW.
Very
IZW and UPW out of California, which is where Cena came from.
yeah. And now I think he's in a tag team with Trevor Murdoch in the NWA.
NWA, yeah. What's cool about Knox? What I appreciate is I saw an interview that he did where someone asked him what his favorite match in his indie career was, and it was he said Globe 2003 in IZW. Um, it was meant to be a one-on-one match with him and Derek Nykirk, and he was playing a heel champion where he would get himself disqualified so that he would retain his title. At this point, the commissioner was done with him doing that, and when he pulled that again, he came out and said, "No, this match will restart. Now it's no disqualification." And the match started again, and they started pulling weapons out from underneath the ring, and ladders and tables, and the whole 9 yards. And then he goes out. Then he goes outside, and he gets counted out. And it might have been the other way around. He gets counted out first, and then it goes to no DQ. But anyway, the commissioner comes out and says, "No, no, no. We're going to have a winner. This match is going to end by either pinfall or submission." So it ended up being best 2 out of 3 falls, no disqualification, when it was only supposed to be a one-on-one match. And this was a brand new venue for us, and we were told no ultra violence. So we weren't supposed to do anything of the sort. No weapons or anything like that. And before the show, Knox had me putting weapons underneath the ring. Like, go put that over there. So the stuff they pulled out, yeah, that's on me. But by far, to this day, still one of the best matches I've ever seen. And he went on record as saying that was one of his favorite matches of his career. And so I'm honored to be a part of that.
Very cool. And what people don't realize and they don't think about is Mike Knox did the Sister Abigail that Bray Wyatt did before Bray Wyatt. Because if you go back to his ECW days, the WWE version, that's the finisher he was using.
Yeah. And Knox used a maneuver called the cattle drive, which no one uses anymore. Which is a shame, because it was a brilliant move, and I wish they would bring it back.
Wow, it opened by itself.
Yep.
What was your favorite promotion you worked for?
Well, there's been a lot of promotions that I've worked for now at this point. I mean, hell, I've like 9 different locker rooms this year alone. But I'm gonna have to say that the top 2 in my career at this point is still up for. I've been with SCW for over a year. In that time, I've not only gained some respect from the locker room, but from the higher ups as well, and I'm helping them become a force to be reckoned with here in Arizona.
Very cool. My favorite snack is a cookie. What's your favorite snack and why?
My favorite snack. I would probably say Reese's peanut butter cups. That is my my go-to.
Very good choice. If you could work for any major promotion or top indie promotion, which one would it be and why?
Well, I mean, growing up, I was always a WWE guy, but uh, you know, times have changed now. I mean, the company is not the same as it was back in the '90s. So to limit your career to only one when there are so many different promotions out there, um, it's uh, at this point it's more just riding the wave and see where it takes you, and taking the opportunities where and when they come. Right now, um, if I were to have a chance to be looked at by AEW, I would most certainly take it. And I'm putting myself in a position to at least be in the same town as AEW, and I'll be out in Vegas for All or Nothing, and we'll see if
Jealous.
any doors open while I'm out there.
Yeah, that that's gonna be an awesome weekend. And as my co-host of the car said, we're both kind of jealous of that because we would love to be up there for that weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually going up there for versus pro wrestling. They got an event coming up called Paradise City, and uh, we'll be doing that the night before AEW. So it's going to be a long weekend in Vegas, baby.
Can't go wrong there.
Right.
We know in some promotions, referees have done many jobs. Besides refereeing, what other jobs have you done in a promotion?
Well, that story would take me back to the Red Carpet Rumble for United Wrestling Network. Um, I got an offer to be a driver for their AEW guys. Um, so yeah, just to get my foot in the door with that company, I um, uh, drove down to the airport and picked up some of the AEW talent and um, drove them to the event and back to their hotel when the event was done. And yeah, it was a paying gig. I want to say I got paid by United Wrestling Network now. I had the opportunity to um, I was in full gear to be a referee, but you don't always get picked for that when you're on standby. But yeah,
That
I was behind the scenes for that. Um, so that's probably uh, uh, the big opportunity that I've had this year. In the meantime, like I said, I work with Sonoran Championship Wrestling. A lot of behind the scenes stuff. I do a lot of graphic design work. As a matter of fact, if you take a look over here, this is our next show coming up. I don't know if you can see that real well.
Very cool.
Yeah.
This is SCW Heatwave, June 17th at the Luke Greenway American Legion post. So we're gonna be downtown Phoenix. We've kind of made a home down at this American Legion post, and yeah, I'm doing the graphic design work for them. I did this one for Heatwave. I did this one for One Night in Phoenix. I don't know if you can see that.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as far as the stuff behind the scenes outside of refereeing, it's promoting the shows and making them look good.
We've actually interviewed a very talented female wrestler from Arizona. Her name is SOS.
Yeah. Right. Well, SOS been with Sonoran Championship Wrestling for quite some time, and she's definitely a force to be reckoned with. Although I have to warn her opponents. You know, when you're facing single competitor, you know, that is stepping into the ring tonight, you can see it in her eyes. She's not the same person every time.
Absolutely. And I love the character where she could just tag herself in and the different personas, you know, kind of come out. That, to me, that's very innovative.
Oh, that's great when you have the happy versions of her. When the other ones come out, I've seen her lose her eyes, like nothing but whites. One of the scariest things I've seen in the ring. Yeah, she's got a great look to her, but when she flips her hair back and there's nothing but whites there, holy shit.
What championship matches if any, have you gotten to referee? And for what promotion was it for?
I didn't catch that one. Say it again.
Sorry about that. What championship matches, if any, have you gotten to referee? And for what promotion was it for?
Well, for ICW, back in the day, it was I think it was Mike Knox and Jimmy Snuka.
Ooh.
For SCW, we had TJP come out.
Ooh.
And so yeah, and the thing about that one was I had not turned on the TV in quite some time. I didn't know who TJP was. So yeah, that was interesting because you know, when you get the bigger superstars to come in, they'll kind of do a seminar where people are listening to what they have to say, getting feedback and all of that. So yeah, I thought it was just another indie star on the scene coming in. And then after the match, it's like our top guys are like kneeling at his feet, listening to every word he said. It was like, I'm going to have to Google this guy. Oh, So you're someone.
It's like
So,
you're someone.
but
Very nice to meet you.
right, and that's what's nice about actually putting the TV down every once in a while and missing that. It keeps you humble. Um, one of the worst things that you can be in the business is a mark, or so they say. Where you're totally um, starstruck by people coming in, and they always tell you, don't be a mark when they show up. Don't be a mark. Just be cool. And it's like I can walk right up to them, and they're just like anybody else. Um, and if I don't know anything about them to begin with, they're just another person. So it saves me a lot of starstruck moments. And yeah, it's to the point now where every locker room just has people in it.
I like that answer, and personally, I try to do the same thing. The more people I get to interview and stuff. So. Can you give us a list of your top 5 referees of all time?
Top 5. Well, uh, like I said, I was a WWE guy, so you're probably not going to get a whole lot of WCW love from me. But you know, uh, guys like Henner and Tim White really stick out from the top. On the independent level. The guys who paved the way for me are like Scott Johnson and Scarlett Donovan. Uh, have been running the scene for a while now, and with them making bigger steps, that actually clears a path for people like me to take on some more work. So I really appreciate what they've done, probably more so than I do the higher ups. And the higher ups are great, and yeah, they're good for training footage, and I'm most certainly watch the reels for Hebner especially. Um, but the ones who actually make ends meet in my own career, those are the ones I want to give props to. And with that being said, I have to give props to my current Arizona team, Sean Rankin and Paul Pritchard, who are alongside me in several promotions here in Arizona.
Very cool. And I like that you give, props to the people you work with, because I think that is very important.
Well, there's too many people in this business for anyone to consider themselves a one-man show. No one does it on their own. We all have to lift each other up.
Completely agree with that one. Getting in my own wrestling match with my questions here. Okay. When you work for a promotion, does the promotion pay for your gear, or do you have to supply your own?
At this point in my career, I'm on my own for that. Sonoran Championship Wrestling is working on investing in itself, which eventually will include wardrobe. We're getting there, but for right now, yeah, it's out of pocket costs.
So I noticed in doing some research that you work for Rocky Mountain Pro, or you rep for. Can you tell us a little
Yeah,
bit
I
about
did
that?
just get back from Colorado. I saw the interview that you did with Ramrock, and
Yeah.
I was actually out there on the tour with him as well. While I was out there, um, I did 5 shows in 4 days. The Rocky Mountain pro tapings for Ignition and Charged, Battleground Pro Wrestling on Saturday, and then back to Rocky Mountain Pro for a non-recorded live performance. But actually, today's Tuesday, and there should be a new episode of Ignition happening tonight. When we taped for 4 weeks. So I do have a segment coming up in one of them, but I'm pretty sure that's still in another week. But yeah, I did. I did. They did give me the opportunity to ref at least one match per show since I was out there.
And Ramrock's an awesome individual. Like, I mean, that was probably one of the most entertaining interviews,
Yeah,
back and forth that we've done.
yeah, Ramrock's one of my favorite wrestlers in our group. He's a top-notch person and a great competitor in the ring.
And you brought up Battleground. That's I think a promotion that people are gonna need to pay attention to, in the Colorado area if they're not already.
Who to pay attention to?
The Battleground. I think that they should, people should pay attention to Battleground in Colorado if they're not already.
Yeah, it seems to be to the point now where we have a lot of our guys touring, and hitting those spots on a regular basis. So that entire locker room is something to really be watching. It's being taught by and the school is being run by Al Snow and D'Lo Brown, and the show itself is being produced by Vince Russo.
Wow.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So as far as guys in their locker room to keep an eye out for, we got Balaam Links that is just starting to come out to the Arizona area. He's from back there. Bruce Wayans is one of the most entertaining guys in their locker room. He's a lot of fun, and he's definitely got the size to move forward. So he would be one to watch for sure.
Yeah, I have kind of a funny story about him. We interviewed him on here also.
Oh, cool.
About a month back, or maybe a little bit more than that. And he had a little wrestling buddy of himself with him. And he flipped it up in the air because he's a showman. And when it landed, it hit the keyboard and knocked his sound out for like half the interview. So it was like doing an interview with like a mime trying to figure out what he was saying.
That's awesome.
In your opinion, who was the worst guest referee in wrestling history?
Worst guest referee. That is a tough one. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that do guest referees just to get the story across, and that has its purpose. But the guys who really don't belong as a referee or play the I hurt my arm gimmick. You know, I'm not a fan of that. You know, it's like we all know you've shaken your arm more than 3 times and have been just fine. So Shane McMahon comes to mind as one of the guys that I wouldn't want to be my referee, but um, even Snoop Dogg, um, he's had to throw a 3 count before, and um, he comes across as not knowing what he's doing. And because he's been in the wrestling ring more than once, I'd really like to see him get some actual training. And his character in the Def Jam Vendetta game, I would really like to see him bring Crow to life. But
Yeah,
he's going to have to train for that.
I'm glad you say that because a lot of people forget that he was in that game or forget about that game at all. And you're right. In that game, his character was kind of a badass. So, you know,
Yeah, and I'd like to see him portrayed that way, um, at least on TV, at least once. I mean, he comes across as just kind of a gangly guy, but without any training at all, and it shows, and that upsets me.
yeah. And I thought he was going to get some training when he was in AEW because there was some, you know, some spots where it looked like he was going to do more than just, be Snoop Dogg. But it didn't pan out that way.
Right.
Have you ever refereed uh, outside the United States? And
Uh,
if
I
so,
have
where?
yet to travel internationally, but it is a bucket list item, and there's a part of me that feels like a passport is in my future. So um, I'm keeping my eyes out for uh, doors that open in that department.
Um, Now I'm gonna. This is kind of a three-part question. So actually, it's not three parts, but which is the most difficult match to referee? Singles, tag team, and I have to say it this way because our other co-host who couldn't be here today is a manager. So sorry, Big Buddy. Or matches where there's a manager outside.
There's a what?
When there's a manager outside. So what's more difficult to referee? Singles, tag, or when there's a manager outside?
The most difficult matches are probably luchador tag. Those are just um, insane. The rules for luchador are as soon as someone rolls out of the ring, the next guy can jump in, and now he's the legal guy, which means that I can have between 4 and 8 people jumping in and out of the ring at any given time, and I have to keep track of who is who. And more often than not, it ends in a pinfall with a guy who's not legal at all, and I have to count the pinfall. For me, that's the most difficult. It comes across as chaotic sometimes, and the crowd's having a blast. There's a lot of action happening around, so they're not really minding or caring about that particular thing. But as a referee, it's like my job is to like ground it. I'm the one element of realism in this whole thing, and I'm I'm just not able to do it the way it's supposed to be because um they they're all over the place. You know,
Right, and
you
that's
know.
like you said earlier. That's where the athleticism comes in because you got to constantly be moving because they're all over the place.
Yeah. So a quick story on um, the luchador wrestling. This year saw me referee for Arizona Commission of Wrestling in Arizona, and we had a match between a couple of SCW guys at that show that were starting to get heat with each other, and it got to the point where they took the action out into the crowd, and I'm having to count to 10, and I know they can hear me, but I get to 8, and he throws them into the chairs, and so I know they're not coming back in. It's like, well, lucha rules. We're counting to 20. So he finally turns around and checks in, and I'm like, 14. Like, you can come in at any time, guys.
Come on, it's not that hard. Just
the so yeah, um uh the rules kind of lighten up in a lucha show environment, and that is what's chaotic.
can you give us a list of your top 5 wrestlers of all time?
Uh oh, my wrestler again. I'm a WWE guy. Um, I was in high school during the Attitude Era, so it's probably going to be the main eventers from that era. Guys like Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Steve Austin, The Rock, and The Undertaker. Um, and um, that's uh, pretty much as good as it gets. Um, Back in the day. And you'll argue the main eventers from WCW at the same time, but it was such a different product. And yeah, I just found myself on the WWE side of the train tracks. Um, Everything from um, how stiff the ring was in WCW, how stiff the ropes were in WCW, the storylines that they told, and the people that they had to tell it. It was a very very different product, and personally, I just appreciated WWE more at that time.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with that. Back at that time with WCW, even though they were, having a lot of success, a lot of their stories felt kind of jumbled. You know what I mean? Like you had this guy over here, then you had this guy over here, and where
Like being
WWE,
2020, it's like there's several storylines where you can we should have done something different, and like uh the NWO storyline, the way that it ended was a mess.
yep,
And while the NWO will always be iconic, um I kind of saw that going that direction early on, and didn't didn't watch it religiously, because it's like, oh, there's a new guy this week. Oh, there's a new guy this week. There's a new guy this week, and now they're fighting each other.
yeah,
So, yeah, yeah, my Mount Rushmore is going to be WWE guys all the way.
if you were not a referee, what other uh, profession would you like to be doing?
Um, Honestly, this is all I ever saw myself doing. And there was nothing else that stuck out the way that wrestling did for me. Um, this is all I ever wanted to do. And yeah, on the indie level, it doesn't pay the bills, so I have a career outside of this, but um, there's a difference between um, uh, working to provide and working to fulfill. And wrestling does one, and the other does the other.
If you could have a dream match to referee, what type of match would it be, and who would be in it?
Uh, I mean, everyone's goal in this industry is to main event WrestleMania. Um, while there's some that don't hold that to the highest regard anymore, that has always been the milestone, and that for referees too, is to be there for the main event in WrestleMania, to be um, at the biggest stage possible with holding the world title before the match. So you know, uh, wrestler wise, I mean, there's a lot of guys that I would want to work with, but because I made a point of turning the TV off for a while. There's a whole slew of new wrestlers, which will be all brand new faces to me anyway. So to be able to work with the guys who were on top of the industry, 10 years ago, um, would probably be something that I hold dear. I mean, on the independent level, you run into guys from the decade beforehand who were big names, and that means a great deal to me. In Arizona, we have guys like the Honky Tonk Man, who are local, and superstar Billy Graham, which I'm glad to say at this point that I did get a chance to meet him and work with him at least once. Um,
Wow.
yeah, so it's not so much about main eventing with the new crew as it is the ones who have paved the way for them. I mean, Chris Jericho comes to mind. Uh, that would be cool. Um, I really liked Dustin Rhodes' work back in the '90s. Um, his portrayal of Goldust was um, interesting and unique, and I can remember even dressing up as Goldust once for Halloween myself. And um, out of everybody, he is one person that I still have yet to meet that I would really want to go out of my way for.
He's one of those guys that, like, the longer he goes, it seems like the better he goes, right? Like, look
Yeah,
at his work now in AEW. I mean, it's like almost flawless. Like,
yeah. And I've had the opportunity to work with a bunch of guys who have made names for themselves. Frankie Kazarian came out of UPW, um,
yeah,
along with Melina. Um, she was in ICW before she went to WWE. So I got the chance to work with her before she made it big. Mike Knox especially. He's someone that has had a full on career, and I was there before he was well known.
that is extremely cool. I actually liked his character a lot in the original ECW. Just the kind of imposing guy that was kind of always in a bad mood mainly because of what Kelly was doing. And would
Yeah.
just go in and take out like his aggression on the people that he was in the ring with.
Yeah. He was always entertaining to watch, and yeah, all really entertaining to be around. And um, I was glad to see him take off when he did.
What training is involved in becoming a referee?
Well, you show up to the school. The specific training is not that much different than what it takes to be a wrestler. I mean, the basics are still there, but you get your one-on-one with your trainer um, for things that are specific to being a referee. Um, but I wouldn't say that uh, physically in the class they demand any less of you.
That's awesome. Um, and a lot of people don't think about that. That the referees have to, train as much, if not even maybe a little bit more, than the wrestlers, because you guys are out there more
Well,
times.
and we're we're having to do a lot of communication. We're having to give them their times and making sure that especially for televised events that they get in and get out on time, um, because if they run too long, then someone else has to cut theirs short, um, which has happened once or twice.
What mark would you like to leave on the wrestling community?
One thing that I think that the wrestling community really needs is uh, unity. What I mean by that is the wrestling world was really uh, how should I say it? Um, if you were to look at Vince McMahon as a religion, let's put it that way. There was one philosophy in the world of or the business of wrestling, and that was the way that McMahon looked at things and the way that he did things. So there's a lot of people who were starting out who looked at the way that he did things and made it gospel. Well, what he mainly did was monopolize, and you can't take those same strategies at the independent level. Um, in order for us to um, do what we need to do, there needs to be more people working together. Um, we have a lot of very small independent factions that are like working side by side without realizing that they could really just join forces and work together for a common goal. Um, what wrestling needs is a college level, and I think we need to start thinking of it that way. Is the independent scene needs to have um, levels. You have your top tier colleges and your secondary college level. Your your little schools, your bigger schools, your televised shows, and your nationally known groups. Um, you need to have the ability to work side by side with another promotion when your first tier um, uh, promotion. and say, look, I got guys on my side, you got guys on your side. We can, we can work together and send guys to each to get them trained, to get more matches under their belts, to make our storylines bigger, have more directions to go. I'm putting my money into this. You're putting your money into that. That's the one thing mine is missing, and vice versa. We could really work together and promote a bigger show. I feel like that on the opening level, there needs to be more of that. They can't be thinking like McMahon, like um, I might only pay you in a hot dog and a handshake, but if you work for that company, you can't work here anymore. It's like, well, give my hot dog to someone else. And
I like the idea that you just said about the college, wrestling part of it, right? Like the indies being like, that's a very interesting way to look at that, and I completely agree.
yeah, I think it'll do us a lot of good, and I think there's a lot of promoters out there now who are really starting to get that. There's a lot of people who are in it just because they have a love for wrestling and they're wanting to get a start, so they buy a ring and start putting together a show, and it doesn't pertain to much because they want to completely do it on their own. They need to realize they don't have to be alone to produce their product. If you're offering a show and you need bodies for that show, and you don't have many, then have another promotion work with you, and make it so that you have more directions to go with your storylines, more wrestlers to work with, a bigger roster. You can double your roster just by working with another promotion that happens to be running next door. We don't need to have a turf war when there's like 7 promotions down in the valley, and a lot of their wrestlers already work together. There just needs to be more of that, and if we can all do that, we all win.
If you could book one match as a booker, what type of match would it be? Who would be in it, and who would go over?
Um. Well, going back to that match that I talked about with Mike Knotts at Globe, that uh, three separate matches in order to win, with different rules under each one. I felt was a great specialty match, and as far as who's in it, well, I can't really put names to who I would want in it, because I would use that specialty match for a lot of folks. I could see us doing that in our own group here in SCW for the heavyweight championship. And maybe we make it a triple threat, and we have our biggest guys go up against our up and comers. Guys like Ramrock and Capane and Bloodline, um, that would be something to see.
In your opinion, who's the better wrestler turned actor?
Turned actor.
Yeah.
Well, the Rock has had a phenomenal career as a wrestler turned actor. Um, he's most certainly got my respect in everything that he's done outside of the ring. I do wish that he would have stayed in wrestling as a third generation wrestler. Um, I felt like the legacy was his, but the bloodline is carrying on his name quite well. So I'm not too worried about his legacy at this point anymore. Although I have gone on record in the past as saying I did want him to finish have a lifelong career in wrestling. Um, um, Batista comes into a close second, um, but I don't know if it's because I'm not familiar with the comic book version of Drax, but I never could quite get into his character. I didn't know what he was trying to fit into, but I knew he didn't fit into it.
Got it.
So if that makes any sense.
It does. And I'd like to take a minute before I ask the next question and say thank you to our two sponsors. One, the CARE program, which stands for Community Action Reaching Everybody. And if you want to get a hold of the lady that's in charge of that, you can get a hold of Becky Bernhardt. And then two is Bruce Nichols Painting for all your painting needs, pressure washing, and lead removal. And you can get a hold of him on Andy's. So, kind of a follow up to the last question. What's your favorite wrestling movie?
Hands down, The Wrestler. I feel like Mickey Rourke's portrayal of uh, independent wrestler and the life that he lives is probably the most accurate portrayal in a movie so far. Um, it was well done. I watch it quite often. Um, and when I tell people to watch a wrestling movie, that's the one to go to. The behind the scenes in the locker rooms, the way that people interact is probably the most accurate that I've seen in a movie.
I would agree with that. In your opinion, who are your top 5 tag teams of all time?
Top 5 tag teams. Legion of Doom, hands down. Um, uh, the Hardy Boys, Edge and Christian. Um, a lot of it comes from the Attitude Era. Like I said, I put down my TV for a long time, so I'm sure there's plenty that I could get arguments from that are younger than that. Um, yeah, Edge and Christian, um, the Hardy Boys. Um, DX for sure.
Is it hard for you as a referee to watch wrestling as a fan without picking it apart?
Yeah, it's kind of the reason why I turned the TV off for a while because it wasn't fun anymore. Um, uh, I look at it as it's work now. I don't say that as a bad thing, but it's important just watching it for the entertainment value of it. Is it looking good? Is there stuff that I need to work on? Is there, what happened here, what happened there? I can't help but pick it apart anymore. So yeah, that most certainly is an issue. Is sitting down and watching it. It's not the same as it was when you were just a fan. Um, you get the opportunity to watch it as a fan, and then you get yourself working in your own mind, and it's hard to shut it off. I mean, you're in the business, and that's just kind of how it works. Is um, looking for you're looking for constant improvement in everything that you see.
Have you ever been at a wrestling show where it's a sellout backstage? Sorry, did you want me to say
That again?
Yeah, have you ever been to
Yeah.
a wrestling show where it's been a sellout backstage, where everybody could kind of goes to the curtain and to watch the matches?
Um. Yeah. There's a lot of backstage areas have monitors now, and there's a lot of people who watch the shows, and um, I'm most certainly one of them, where I'm wanting to pay attention as to what's going on in the show. Um, but I also work at age. Uh, I work with the promoter and the booker to help come up with storylines on occasion. So I want to keep myself informed on how things went and what is, the most natural storyline that you can make from that that pinpoint. So yeah, watching the show, yeah, that happens.
We all know that there are pranks or ribs done in the wrestling all the time. Has anyone done one to you, or and if so, who?
Ribs. Um, okay. Well, when we first broke into the business, and like I said, I broke into the business with three of my friends from high school. We had just gotten started with IZW, and um, uh, Nav had us go up to Laughlin for UPW Rage on the River, and it was a big show that they were producing at the Edgewater, and it was one of the biggest things that we had done up until that point. And watching things like Tough Enough and hearing stories from the guys already, we kind of knew that was a thing, and so um, uh, we knew it would be coming. So it got to the point where it hadn't happened yet, so we flat out asked for it. What had happened was one of the rules in after a show is when everyone's out and out at the club. We were at one of the nightclubs or lounges um, down in Laughlin, and one of the rules was you don't go to sleep first. And we kind of all know that from childhood. You go to a sleepover, you fall asleep first, you end up with toothpaste in your shoes, that sort of thing. Well, one of our guys decided that he was gonna go to bed first, and we knew that was the perfect opportunity. so we gave our we gave our hotel key to Mike Knox, and there was it was a dual bed room, and the guy who went to sleep slept on the floor at the base, so it was like straight in front of the door. And we gave him our hotel key, and in the middle of the night, they opened up the door and egged us.
Oh,
So my friend sat straight up off the floor and took one right in the forehead. And he was so pissed about it that he stayed there, egg on his face, until we came in at like 3 a.m. And he was like, "Let me see your keys." But yeah, uh, Knox was a lot of fun back in the day, and yeah, the ribbing that we were involved with back in the day started with him. I won't name any names, but like I said, back then, and it was on that same Laughlin trip. Um, you don't go to bed first, and um, one of the wrestlers went to bed first, and we waited until he was completely asleep, and we all snuck into his room and duct taped him to that bed. So yeah, that was fun.
when you're traveling from a show, do you prefer to travel alone or with another wrestler or referee?
Well, from my standpoint, I'm 100 miles away from anyone, so I'm pretty much traveling alone. I have taken road trips with other wrestlers, and those have most certainly been fun. But there is nothing like the freedom of being able to go at your own pace and go where you're wanting to. And my my travel pictures um, are uh, are envied by a lot of people because I hit a lot of places very quickly. If you remember the movie National Lampoon's Vacation, where Chevy
Yep.
Chase uh, uh, robs the cash register at the Grand Canyon,
Yeah.
and he grabs the cowboy hat and he runs out to his family and says, "Hey, we got to go." And he says, "Don't you want to see the Grand Canyon?" And he puts his arm around his wife for like 3 seconds, and you see him get anxious. Okay, we got to go. And he's only there for 3 seconds. That's like my entire trip, everywhere I go. It's like, I'm here now. I'm there. I got to go.
Got
But it makes it so that I get to see a lot of really cool things in a very short amount of time.
when you're not at a show, what do you do to relax?
What do I do to relax?
Yeah.
Well, my real job keeps me on my toes for 70 hours a week, and after that I come home and I'm doing graphic design for wrestling. So I'm relaxing from the real job by doing the wrestling. So it is the thing that I need to unwind. I need to be able to yell at a guy who's 3 times my size in the face just for a second. Otherwise, I'll do it at work, and that's no good.
Yeah, it's probably a pretty good aggression release. At least it would be
Yeah.
for me. So, in doing my research, we found out that you're a Cardinals and a Bears fan for football.
Yeah. Cardinals, obviously, because I live in Arizona. I always support the home team. I'm a Bears fan because that's how I was raised. my parents come from the suburbs north of Chicago, right there on the Wisconsin border. So there's a lot of my family that is split down the middle between being Bears fans and Packers fans, and my dad fell on the Bears side, which has been uh, a lot of fun in watching games. Um, I've had um, uh, I've had relationships where my partner was a Packers fan. So watching football was just a lot of fun because there was a lot of ribbing back and forth. Um, but you know that relationship falling through, I'm gonna blame that on her being a Packers fan, and I won't make that mistake again.
Well, I'm pretty sure she's not thrilled right now, considering Aaron Rodgers left to go to the Jets. So
Yeah, well, you know what? He can stay there because my teams are on the NFC side. Him being on the AFC, he's not anything that I will have to worry about anytime soon.
yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I'm a Seahawks fan because we live in Washington. So if he can stay away from the NFC, we're good to go.
Yeah, yeah. I would hope to do some wrestling on the Washington scene, hopefully soon. I did get up there um, for vacation last year. Went up to Multnomah Falls. Yeah, very beautiful country up there.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good wrestling up here. This place is kind of starved for wrestling. So whenever we get it, they kind of eat it up.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'll look for opportunities to get up that way.
And we'll go ahead and put your name in some people's ears that we know down this way too. So that might help you out a little bit.
Sure, absolutely. Um, the After the Vegas trip next weekend, my calendar kind of thins out, um, so I'd be able to take on some bookings.
Very cool. Do you have anything you want to promote that you have coming up?
Yeah. To reiterate, SEW Heatwave, Saturday, June 17th, Luke Greenway, American Legion Post 1, 364 North 7th Avenue in Phoenix. Doors open at 5 for the meet and greet. Um, I believe um, uh, we have uh, qualifying matches for the upcoming Castle Cup that will be decided at that show, and I believe the main event will be SCW champion Jay Garland versus James Bloodline McPherson, and I believe it'll be his first time getting a title shot. So this should be interesting.
Very cool. Well, we want to thank you for being on, and you're welcome back anytime. Um, this was a lot of fun.
Appreciate it.
And I want to let our fans know that coming up tonight at 6, we have the Madman for the Badlands, Animal Sam. So stay tuned for that. And until then, everybody be well and try to stay cool because it's kind of warm out there still.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, everybody.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
What?